Hey guys, we are at day 5 of Upskill in GCP. In today's video, we'll talk about how to fetch API credentials in order to automate the GCP day-to-day activity. And we'll be using Terraform for today's demo, like how we can pass the credentials, how we can create a resource out of it to get the basic of how to automate things in GCP. In current world, all operations being carried out either in terms of DevOps practice or using CLI or in any automation way. So that's why we want to ensure we get the grip of how to automate at the very beginner level itself. The service accounts, which from where we can get the API tokens, and then we can take it up further to the next step of automation part. To get the service account created, you go to the IAM, and then you would see something called as service accounts. You can also search it here with the service account keyword that should come, and let's create one service account. So I'm going to keep it as evidhai demo, and then the service account is going to consist of a name, and it's automatically creates the specific part. So for automation demo, you'll keep it as a generic one. So let's create and continue. On the same way, we also have access to the specific project. We can provide that. Let's do this, create and continue. So it's going to create, and then the next step is to provide the access to specific project. So I'm going to give the owner permission for now, and I can add any new rule if needed. And if I continue, keep as it is, and done. Because our ideal motive here is to create the service account. And can go and select for manage keys, and let's add a key, create a new key, and we need this in the JSON format. So let's save this key in the which is in the JSON format, and let's keep it aside. Now we have the key, and let's also see what is the how the Terraform config looks for the Google part. So there is a provider called Google, which is officially managed by the Google under the Terraform. And unlike any other documentation, you can go here and look for use provider documentation, and you can just copy paste the base template over here. So I already have the VS Code extension kept handy on the left side. So let's create a file called main.tf, and let's create a file called provider.tf, and let's copy paste the basic part, because if you're aware about Terraform, that's how the API between Google and your local Terraform configuration would communicate. In case if you're not aware about Terraform, ignore the factor of it. Today focus is going to be like how we are going to use the JSON credentials which we used it, right, or fetch from the account created. So if you go in terms of like providers configuration, and if you Google in terms of authentication aspect, they provide multiple ways to pass the authentication. So one, you can use an environment variable called Google_credentials and then pass the value. Or if you're going to use a service account, they say that use something called Google application credentials to set it as an environmental variable and then pass the credentials. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a file called creds.json, and let me go ahead and fetch the JSON value. So anyway, I will going further, I will just go ahead and destroy this later. But for now, like I'm keeping the credentials in the file called creds.json, and in the provider, we would need to pass the credentials. So if you see the example, there is something called credentials as the variable. You can go through the part. So it says credentials variable, and then we want to pass the JSON file for it over there, right? So where can we pass this credentials? It's going to be in the provider block. So within the provider, we want to pass credentials equal to the file of, and then we want to pass the path location. So in our case, it's going to be /creds.json, and it should be in the codes. Of course, we can try creating a sample resource. Maybe you can go for, let's try to create a bucket. So cloud storage, Google storage bucket, and let's try to create one sample bucket, right? So we can use this one. For the sample bucket is just going to be the normal one. We can take this one, for example, and in the main.tf, let me copy this, and think we have this specific configuration ready. And if I go for Terraform and try running Terraform init, so it start installing the package, and we would need to do Terraform plan, and we could see the plan is happening, right? That it could be able to communicate, the credentials bit is working in a way. And if I do Terraform apply, then it's asked for the permission, then the resource is going to get required. So here it says project required field is not set, which means, as we know that the the GCP, it's every resource is bounded with a specific project. So what we want to do is, in the provider phase, we want to pass the keyword called project, and then this project name is going to be your project ID. So you can get the project ID over here. So if you go for this one under the specific project, and that's going to be consist with the ID itself, right? So which we have seen in the, you can see the project name and then the project ID. So I'm just going to just copy paste the project ID, and let's try to run the Terraform apply to see whether it's create the resource or not now. So now it says billing account of the owning bucket is disabled instead, but it's more about like sorting out the billing configuration over there. But our initial credentials part is getting it working. So that's what the entire focus of video today. Same way, the creds.json, in case if my intention is not, I don't want to pass a file in the provider configuration, then what else I can do here is I can replace this credentials one with the environmental variable called this specific value. So if you see, I can set this value, which is Google application credentials. I can show you like how it is going to work without this credentials file, right? So now I'm not passing any credentials file. And if I do Terraform apply, it's, you see, it says application to default credentials. So it couldn't load the credentials. So how we are going to go load the credentials is the primary focus of today's video, right? So what I can do is I can say export, and then the credentials equal to, I can use the path of the file now. So it's going to be ./creds.json format. Now, once this has been exported, now if I run Terraform apply, for instance, it's going to fetch the credentials of GCP from the environmental variable. So you would do the same thing in other provider as well. Like you would be exporting it as an environmental variable and then run it, so that you don't hard code anything in the specific code value. So once you export this specific value, the Google application credentials for the service account. So if you see that this is going to be mainly for the service account key file, right? So there are also other options like they supports it, like the Google credentials, Google key file JSON, and as the local support and variables, but with this specific way of setting the credentials. Okay, so this tomorrow we'll explore around the GCP CLI. Okay, so that's how the day 6 video will be around. So if you are following this series, kindly leave a like, and also mention in the comment that you are following this series, and also let us know what topic you would like us to cover. in the upcoming session. Thanks.